This one's here in Ephrata, the Major Richard D. Winters Trail. This was recently named after the one of the main people involved with the Band of Brothers miniseries. Dick Winters grew up here in Ephrata. This trail is over that side of town. It's an old railroad bed. It's about a mile long. It's paved. Some trails are a good place to walk the dog. Some trails are a destination in and of themselves. I'm not going to drive to this trail to take a walk necessarily, but if I'm in the area, if I'm an Ephrata resident, it's a great place to get off of a sidewalk. It's shaded. They're eventually going to try to connect this to some other trails to make a longer corridor. I'm not sure exactly where they are in that process, but hopefully somewhere along the line there'll be a trail that goes from Ephrata through Akron out to Lititz. That's the Richard D. Winters Trail. The second part of that trolley trail line is over in Warwick Township, and it goes into Lititz. It starts at the Warwick Township Municipal Building. There's a couple of spurs off of this trail. Again, this one's paved. Grand total, it's probably about a mile and a half. It's sort of a Y. There's two sections to it. One part goes from the Warwick Township Municipal Building straight into Lititz. It doesn't quite go into like the center of Lititz, but it gets pretty close. And then there's a spur trail that goes through some developments that goes out to Newport Road. It's paved. Hopefully when they get all this together, it'll work better. But again, not necessarily a place I'd go as a destination in and of itself, but you know, it's a nice place to walk the dog. Middle Creek Wildlife Management Area. There's a lot of trails up here. There's some state game lands around the lake itself. Does anybody not know where this one is? Okay, I think this one should be fairly self-explanatory. This one's up. It's on the Lancaster-Lebanon County line. It's run by the Pennsylvania Game Commission, but there's some game lands around it. There's a lot of trails here. It's pretty mountainous. Certain trails are pretty mountainous.
Yeah, I know the Millstone Trail.
You're supposed to talk about this one?
And then the Millstone Trail is the one trail, I knows the name of it because at the top of the mountain, the whole trail is basically a steep incline. There's actually a millstone. It's a bit of a mystery because this huge millstone is on top of this mountain. And no one knew who drug it up there or if there was a mill up there and why that would be efficient for a mill to be on the mountain. But along with that one, the other main one I can think of it is a short, I think it's a gravel pathway that leads to a pavilion that overlooks the lake. And during the snow geese season, that's a popular destination, and I've seen bald eagles before. And you can see deer board at the lake a little bit to go to the island that's in the center, depending on the season. But I mean, most people here should be familiar with the project.
I've gone up there to go on hour and a half runs, just kind of go off. There's a lot of, there's a couple of dirt roads around there too that are nice if you don't want to necessarily be plodding over rocks and tree roots and things like that.
And there's good catfishing.
And there's good catfishing. Landis Woods. I went to Manheim Township High School, so this is in Nestell. This is not far from the township campus. Cross-country team would end up there at least twice a week. This is not a big park in and of itself. This is a Manheim Township municipal park. It's about 70 acres. It's just off of 501 and Meadow Lane. It's a series of trails. It's not one trail. There's a museum in the front called the Bocher House. That's what this is. Kind of slopes toward the back of the property. There's a stream that runs through the back. Part of it comes out at St. John Newman Church, the Catholic church there, kind of on the corner of this property. They recently added a parking lot off of Valley Road. If you're familiar with that, not not too far off of the Oregon Pike. They paved the back of Landis Woods. There's a walkway that goes through there now. I think they're trying to make, Manhattan Township's trying to make a greenway system so you can move around without being on roads. They do have a nice little amphitheater there where they do programs and activities. But again, not a bad place to walk the dog, but not necessarily a destination in itself. Lancaster County Central Park. This is down south of Lancaster. This is the flagship of the Lancaster County Park System. It's 500 acres or so. And this, like a lot of parks, there's not one trail that you're going to be on for 5 or 6 miles. It's really a lot of smaller trails. And they all have names like the Wildflower Trail and the Bumblebee Trail. And you sort of have to know your way around the network. When I ran cross country at Elizabethtown College, their cross country course was here. So there's a 5-mile layout that goes through there that's really nice. There's also the Conestoga River goes through there, and there's a stream called Mill Creek, which is what this bridge goes over. This covered bridge wasn't originally there. It was swept off its foundations wherever it originally was built. I don't remember where that was. But they moved it to the park after Agnes and plopped it down. But a lot of trails there. Again, this is a destination of itself. You can go there and walk around for hours. Personal suggestion, I would park near the Environmental Center. The closer you get to the city, the louder it is, the more crowded it is. If you just kind of want to get out to the woods, off of Ashland Mill Road is where the Nature Center and Schutz Environmental Library is. I park there. Lancaster Junction Rail Trail. This is on Champ Boulevard, I believe it is. Lancaster County Safety Training Center is right next to this. This is also very close to where they're building Spooky Nook Sports, which is the largest indoor athletic facility of its kind. It's about a 2.2-mile trail. It's a county-owned rail trail. It's a nice trail. The problem is there's a lot of road crossings on it. It's a gravel path. I would go biking here. By the time you get from one end to the other, it's going to be 20 minutes.
One of the crossings is dangerous.
One of the first crossing that you get to as you're going toward the actual little hamlet of Lancaster Junction off of Champ Boulevard, which is right next to 283. You can see it as you drive along. The very first intersection you get to, there's a house and a road that goes around, and it's just, you sort of take your life into your own hands as you cross the street there. They've done a reasonably good job of putting signs up, trail ahead, don't hit people, but, it's nice. Conoy Township Trail. This goes from Bainbridge to Falmouth. Falmouth is known for its goat races every August. It's about 3.5 miles. It's dirt. There's some wooden bridges that go along it. There was some flooding in 2004 that knocked some of those bridges out, and they kind of put them back together haphazardly. This is they're trying to make this a part of what's called the Northwest River Trail. They're trying to make a series of trails. It's kind of like, there's a couple of trails that are like this. Kind of like the one here in Ephrata and Lidditz. They have ideas and they have plans to connect them, but right now it's a segment here, a segment there. That's what this is. The Northwest River Trail is going to go along the Susquehanna River, roughly from Columbia, Cheese Rock area, all the way up through Marietta, through Bainbridge to Falmouth. Grand total, it's going to be something like 15, 20 miles. There's 3 segments right now. This is one part of it. This is the northern part. There was a canal that went along there. That's what this is here. It's an old canal lock. And there's something, it's not so much part of the trail, but there's a Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission boat launch, which is sort of the end parking lot for this. It makes a really good, it's a good place to go out to what's called the Susquehanna potholes, which when the river's low, are rock formations all along the bank of the river that water and sediment buildup and things have just carved these rocks into some really interesting formations. So you have these rocks that almost look like Swiss cheese. It's really, really neat. You can only see it when the river's kind of low, but it's a personal favorite place of mine to just go. Yes?
Where do you get on that trail?
Where do you get on it? There's two places. In Bainbridge, there's a little park. If you go down, I think it's Race Street. If you turn off at 441, go down Race Street. Just go to the very end. Cross some railroad tracks. There's a little park there. It's like the Legion Park or something like that. It's basically like a pavilion in a picnic grill. That's one side. And then there's a fishing boat commission in Falmouth off of 441. Before you get to Falmouth, there's a Pennsylvania Fishing Boat Commission boat launch there that you can get on there as well. It's a little less than 3.5 miles, the whole thing. This one really doesn't have much of like a website or anything like that. I would have never heard of this again. I ran at Econ College, and this is one place we often would, get on a team van and go for the day. Charles Greenway. This is the middle part of that Northwest River Trail. It's paved. It's relatively new. It opened 2009, something like that. It's about 3 miles. You can get. I'm not sure the street name, but you can get on it in Marietta. You have to sort of go to the end of the road, go under a bridge. And, there's some trails. They're not really. I wouldn't really call it any kind of formal trail, but there's some dirt paths and things along the river in Marietta. You can get on it there, or Riverfront Park, I think it is.
Yes.
Riverfront in it's one of the Donville townships, I think it is. If not Conoy, off of Anderson Ferry Road. You can get on it there. This one's really nice. I would like the view of the river to be better. There's some trees between you and it, so you really can't see as much as you'd like, but it's shaded, it's paved. Sometimes a paved trail is really nice, less jarring on bike. Again, this is one, you can be out and back on this fairly quickly, but again, they're trying to connect this to the Bainbridge one to eventually have a longer trail. Chickies Rock. There's a couple of different trail sections on this one. There's one that will take you from a parking lot on 441. This is a big rock that overlooks the Susquehanna River between Columbia and Marietta. When I say big rock, I mean big rock. This is a person right here. It's something 150, 200 feet tall. There's a parking lot off of 441 where you can hike to the top, and there's an overlook up here, and that's what this is here. This is looking to the north, kind of away from Columbia on the Susquehanna River. So Marietta is like over here, and the other side of the river is York County. There's a really nice trail that goes along the base of the rock itself, between the rock and the river. As you get closer to Columbia, there's an old railroad tunnel that it's not in use anymore. It's not very long. It's a short little kind of hole in the rock. But there's a lot of good. I've done programs on ghost stories, and there's 6 or 7 that come out of Chickies Rock. It's one of my favorite places to just go back a second. If you don't feel like hiking, there is a really nice overlook too called Breezy Point, Breezy Wood, something like that. You can turn off of and drive almost directly to the overlook. You don't have to hike. But the hike from the parking lot to the top of the rock here isn't very long. Round trip, it's 2/3 of a mile. Lebanon Valley Rail Trail and the Conewago Trail. When I say I ran in E-Town, this is where I did more running than I ever would admit. It's a 20 mile long rail trail. It's actually 2 separate trails that really kind of form one. In Lancaster County, it's a little less than 5 mile section. It's a Lancaster County park called the Conewago Trail. once you cross the county line into Lebanon, it's called the Lebanon Valley Rail Trail. It goes from Route 230, about 2 miles outside of Elizabethtown, goes a couple of miles, crosses 743 if you know the road from E-Town to Hershey, keeps going, eventually go into Lebanon, goes through Colebrook, goes through Lawn, goes through Colebrook, goes through Mount Gretna, goes through Cornwall, eventually ending in Lebanon. They recently, in the last 5 years or so, they repaved the Lancaster County part. The part that is in Lebanon County, the Lebanon Valley Rail Trail, is relatively new. It's less than 10 years old. But it's one of those trails. This is a trail where you can get on a bike and go. I haven't done much biking or running or anything outside this year, but Sunday I decided to get off my butt and get outside. So I was on this one. The good part about this one, the drawback to the Lancaster Junction Rail Trail, the one near the Safety Training Center, is a lot of road crossings. This one, not nearly as many. There are sections where you can go 2, 3, 4 miles without having an at-grade road crossing. You might be going over a bridge or on a bridge, but you're not going to have to stop for traffic. 743 is kind of a pain, but really other than that, most of the roads that this crosses aren't really that big a deal. But there's some interesting sites along it too, because you go through Mount Gretna. You can park at Mount Gretna. There's a really great ice cream shop there, called the Digger Shop. There's interesting sites along it too. The giant beer barrel that sits in Cornwall. It's an old ice cream shop or something like that.
I think it's still active during the summer season.
Is it? But it's a giant barrel, and there's some interesting bridges and stuff like that on it too. Yeah.
Where's the best place to get on that other than 743?
There's a parking lot on Route 230 in E-Town. That's the one. Most of the trailheads in Lancaster County are more like there's a place for 1 or 2 cars. Colebrook, there's a parking lot at Colebrook. There's a park. I mean, you can park in Mount Gretna, and it's just a short. There's a spur trail that'll take you to the main trail. You can park in Cornwall. There's a trailhead there. I don't think there's any trailheads till you get to Lebanon. So basically, if you're looking for something close-ish to 230, I would either go to the E-Town, the very end of it on 230, or I would go to Colebrook. And there, Colebrook probably 5 miles from 743. E-Town probably 2.5, 3.
There's also lawn.
No, there's also lawn too. There's community park and lawn to be day.
And this is one of the few trails that I've actually biked before. And I started there where the barrel is, and it's literally right next to Cornwall Elementary. And I think the halfway point between that parking lot and Mount Gretna, the trail is a slight decline, and on the bike ride, you can absolutely just fly down it.
Yeah.
And,
I'll agree with that. I've done a 13-mile bike ride more than once. It takes me about an hour. I'm not that fast. From Colebrook to Cornwall, yeah, what you said is very true. There's a noticeable downgrade. Yeah. Farmdale Trails at Knoll DeWart Park. I have to give credit to the Lancaster County Solid Waste Management Authority. They've done a pretty decent job of being reasonable environmental stewards. I mean, that's the trash people in Lancaster County. This is an old landfill. They want to keep it sort of within their control, so they own this. They've turned it into a park. There's nothing dangerous about it, but they want to keep it they want to keep an eye on it. So they turn it into a trail system. This is off of Good Drive in Roarstown. Again, it's kind of like Landis Woods. It's not necessarily a destination in and of itself, but it's a series of trails. It's basically 3 loops, kind of all interconnected. There's a short loop that's roughly half a mile. There's a medium loop that's roughly a mile. There's a big loop if you go the whole way around the property. It's about 1.5 miles. It's a good surface. It's crushed stone. It looks just like this. The back, there's a spur trail that goes to a really pretty railroad trestle, which is what this is. Sorry, I couldn't find a better picture. Most of these pictures, I have to add a little disclaimer. Most of these pictures I took, some of them I stole from the internet, so. But this is the best I could find. If I'm going running somewhere, I don't take my camera with me. So unfortunately, I don't really have pictures of all of these. But this, I have my cell phone with myself going around. At least not, I don't carry everything. But this is a really good trail. Again, off of Good Drive in Rohrs County, not far from Marietta Avenue. I think the Lancaster County Conservancy wants to put their headquarters here, and they're eventually going to try to connect this to some of the trails and woods that are Franklin Marshall College's Baker campus, which is off of Harrisburg Pike. I'm not sure what the plan is there, but just in and of itself, this is a really nice place to. I mean, you can walk around for half hour, 45 minutes. Lake Rub. All right, this one is a personal favorite of mine. My grandfather passed away in February. He spent a lot of time making this park what it is. Certainly he didn't do it by himself, but this park is sort of his, I will always view it as his legacy. There's 2 pavilions there. One of them is named after him.
He was the chairman.
He was the chairman of the project that put this together. This was an iron mine. It was an iron ore pit. And as with many iron ore pits, you dig far enough down, you hit a spring, and it fills up with water. This was closed to the public for a while. It was in the 50s, 60s. It was a private club. You could swim there. It's really, really deep. I mean, it's a big pit in the ground filled with water. It became a park about 2003. It was September 2003.
There was also a Boy Scout camp up there.
It was Mountainville's water supply for a while. It's a 1-mile trail that goes around the lake. You can't boat or swim or anything like that in the lake. It's just too deep and too dangerous. You can fish there, but there's a really nice 1-mile loop trail that goes around the lake. It tends to get very muddy, very dense trees. Sunlight just doesn't get to the trail surface, and it's dirt. So
And hilly.
hilly. It's very hilly. But there's a smaller, about 1/4-mile ADA trail that will take you from the parking lot down to sort of the water where there's 2 pavilions. There's bathrooms there. It's a personal favorite of mine because my family has a lot of connections to it. But that's Lake Rub. Susquehannock State Park. This is, I haven't spent as much time as I would like on the southern end of the county, southern end of Lancaster County. I do have to put in a shameless plug. The Lancaster County Conservancy has a ton of really great properties, most of which are down along the Susquehanna River in the southern end of the county. I've been to one of them, and I don't remember which one it is. I can't remember if it's Tocqueville, Glen, or Ferncliff. But so I'm not going to be talking about those properties within this discussion. But Lancaster County, I think it's LancasterConservancy.org. They have a great list of properties, a great list of places to go hiking. They do a really good job. So that's my shameless plug for them. But Susquehannock State Park, this is the only state park in Lancaster County. It's 200 acres. It's southern end of the county, kind of in the direction of the Buck. Drumore, I guess, is the actual address. But there's 5 miles of trails there that go around. There's a couple of really, really good overlooks. You can stand at, I think it's called Hawk Point, and see raptors on the updrafts. You're a little bit south, like this is the Norman Blue Bridge up here. So you're a little bit south of that. There's some islands in the Susquehanna River. You can see Peach Bottom Nuclear Power Station. You're supposed to be able to see Mount Johnson Island, which is the world's first bald eagle sanctuary, which is not too far from the Maryland line. On the Lancaster County side of the river. I guess the river technically is all Lancaster County. But that's Susquehanna. All right, the Low Grade Trail. This one's actually in the news a bit lately. I couldn't even tell you exactly how long this one's going to be. Early 1900s, there's a rail line that goes through Lancaster. They wanted a way to take freight trains around the city of Lancaster on a flat surface, a low grade. So through, down along the river to Safe Harbor and then over through Quarryville to Ackland and beyond, they built a rail line. Well, that rail line was abandoned, like a lot of rail lines were. I think in the 70s, around Hurricane Agnes. And it just sort of sat as this rail, this empty rail line for 20, 30 years. Eventually, I think Amtrak owns it, did own it, Amtrak or Norfolk Southern. They gave it to the municipalities, the individual townships in Quarryville Borough that this runs through, and they've turned it into a trail. It's pretty rough. They didn't have a lot of money to really put into this. And again, I can't remember if it was, there was a railroad company, I can't remember, I think it was Norfolk Southern. They put a surface down, and it's pretty rough. Basically, they put the surface down so their trucks can get through. Since it goes from Safe Harbor to Ackland, where there is a current rail line, these poles here are active power transmission poles. That's how they get power to the trains that run the trains from, I guess, Ackland to Lancaster or wherever. So they put this surface down basically for their trucks to get through. But it's a public trail. There's a couple of sections of it, because there's a couple of trestles that go over the Conestoga River, and I don't know if the Martinsville trestle goes over, but a couple of trestles that aren't safe to cross. There's roughly from Quarryville to a little east of Quarryville to the Martinsville trestle, it's about 13 miles. There's a detour through Quarryville. There used to be a bridge as you go into Columbia Bridge Tunnel that they took out. So you have to sort of get off the trail and go through some roads and then get back on. But again, this is a really nice trail. This is a destination. You go there, you can spend a couple hours. It's in the news now, and you probably may have heard of this. There's a section that goes from Turkey Hill on the river down to Safe Harbor that Manor Township owns, and they're in the process of developing it. I don't believe it's open yet. There are some equestrians, horse riders, horse owners that really want to be able to use that trail. Manor Township has said no. The supporters of horse usage have decided that they're going to show up at every Manor Township meeting until they get their way, and I'll leave your judgment on that one. But so that's that roughly 5-mile section from Turkey Hill to Safe Harbor along the river isn't open yet, but when it does, you hear this one from me, but I did go, when I was in college, I did traverse that trail once. It's absolutely beautiful because you're halfway up the river bluffs. Great view of the river. Just an absolutely fantastic view. So when they get that up and running, it's going to be really, really nice. I look forward to going there. But as of right now, I don't believe it's open yet. They will tell you to leave. But hopefully that will be, I don't know, 6 months to a year. I looked at Manor Township's website a couple of days ago, and they said, not yet. Muddy Rocks. This is going to the other end of Lancaster County. This is another county park. This is in Narbonne. It's a little bit off of 322. It overlooks part of Lancaster County. It's called Muddy Rocks because the legend is that farmers used to hide their money in the rocks. There's a rock outcropping that's actually not too far from the parking lot that has a really fantastic view looking kind of west into Lancaster County, kind of back toward the New Holland area. But it's really cool because on the rocks themselves they have some carvings. And I don't think these turned out the way I wanted to. I think this one here says JWS 1938. This one is 1852. So there's some really neat, essentially graffiti from 170 years ago. But as a park itself, there's a lot of trails. I've done a little bit of running there. Mostly I go for the overlook, which again isn't very far from the parking lot. So that's Muddy Rocks. State Game Lands 156. This is one that I could not find any kind of picture for. Has anybody ever heard of the Cornwall Fire Tower? There's state game lands along Route 322 as you go west of Brickerville. That's state game lands 156. Where I go there, I don't even know the name of the road. I just know it's right there and I turn there. But it takes you up essentially a mountain up to the top of this mountain, kind of above Camp Shan, if you know where that is. There's cell towers, there's a lot of communications antennas up there. But there's a road that sort of goes along the spine of this ridge. And there's a parking lot right off of 322 too. But they took down there used to be a fire tower up there called the Cornwall Fire Tower that they've since taken down. My directions are kind of weak there, but you know. All right, going into Lebanon County, Memorial Lake State Park. Not a lot of trails here, but a good place to go and walk around. It's a big lake right next to Fort Union County Gap. I believe this was built as part of Fort Union County Gap as a place during World War II where they could practice amphibious landings. It's a big water pit for soldiers to train. And I mean, it's literally right next to Fort Union County Gap. Lebanon Valley College used to have their cross-country course there. Start and finish line was right here. I spent a lot of time there, more than I would like. And again, not a lot of trails, but a lot of dirt roads and gravel paths and things like that. Just a pretty place to go around. And up in Lebanon County too, there's a relatively new skate park called Swatara. It has a rail trail that goes through it. I've not been on it myself, but it's 10 miles or so. I'm up in that chunk of ballpark. Clarence Shock Park at Governor Dick. This Mount Gretna is a fantastic place. We are very lucky to have it. There's really anything you want in terms of an opportunity to be outside is in Mount Gretna. If you want hills and you want to hike around on rocky trails and things like that, you have the state game lands. You have Governor Dick. The state game lands, obviously our state game lands, people go to hunt there. Right across Pinch Road is what's called Clarence Shock Park at Governor Dick. There's no hunting there, but it's a mountain. Legend is it's named after a slave named Governor Dick. He was a woodhick. He would make charcoal for a Cornwall iron furnace. But at the top of that, this is a 56-foot tall concrete tower. You can climb to the top of. It's kind of disgusting because the ladders you climb up are rusty and there's a lot of bugs and things like that. But you can go to the top and it's a great view. It's this little nasty side. This has been in the news over the last 10 years or so. They built an environmental education center there, which is what this building is. It's very lovely, but there is some controversy as to whether or not they should have built that because the deed for the property, and it's a private property but open to the public, the deed essentially said it's passive recreation only. They've also done a lot of foresting up there. It's been very controversial. I will reserve judgment on that, but if you want to know backstory, Google it. There's plenty of people with opinions. In the state game lands themselves, which is a pretty expansive property, from the one side of Governor Dick to the one side of game lands, it's probably 6 miles or so. You can get lost there reasonably easy. There's a pretty famous rock formation called Dinosaur Rock. That's what this is. That's close to Colebrook, kind of up the hill from Colebrook. But really, if you're looking for the best place for recreation within like an hour of here, it's Mount Gretna. And Mount Gretna itself is just a really awesome town. I tend to shy away from going to Mount Gretna over the summer simply because there's so many people. Just the town is really awesome. Nolte Forest. This is one that I didn't even know existed until 6 months ago. I've been there once. It's in Berks County, kind of south of Reading. It's nice. There's great trails there. Like I said, I really only went on a couple of them, kind of on a kind of cold March day, I think it was. My fiance is a teacher, is a science teacher, and we're trying to figure out exactly what environmental education center is, because they have a building there, and they do things there, but we're not sure, so it's one we have to go back to, but neat place to go and walk around, but I just can't really say a lot of it because I've been there once.
Alright, this is also known as Springs Mill, and it's not too much outdoors occasionally. We also go here about once a week. And it's a canal trail, along to Milwaukee. And I think, well, one end leads to Blue Marsh, and the other end goes to Reading. And they hope to connect it to something like Hamburg, and has similar to what he was saying, there's kind of sections of trails kind of splattered, and they hope to connect everything, including the system that's on Nevis Mountain, next to Reading. And there's a very large wooden bridge across Hoboken, and there are basically three main parking lots, but in the main lots in the middle, where they have the full sign and everything, they have an old farmhouse. I think that's Sound Ranger Station, and there. A neat highlight of this is that, well, it's a canal trail, so it's very flat and level and paved or gravel the whole time, so it's easy walking. But there are some really neat houses along it. One's a neat old boathouse. There's some neat, I guess you could say mansions, but neat houses.
This is an old canal lot here, from along the Union Canal. The distal think it's like 4 or 5 feet tall. Sculpture. I'm a museum geek as well as a biker runner. And there's two really nice museums, the Gruber Wagon Works and the Heister Canal Center in what's called the Berks County Heritage Area, which is kind of the middle. That's where the covered bridge is.
And they have a war memorial,
There's a police memorial and a war
yeah.
memorial.
And it looks like it's a fountain, but I've never seen water in it. But it's very full and it is nice. And again, you can keep on walking, eventually go into Blue Marsh, and of course you get lost in the Blue Marsh system. But you always see hikers, not so much as hikers, but walkers and joggers.
The Union Canal part of the trail, it's a Berks County Park, it's about 5 miles, it's 4.8, something like that. And then there's about a 2 or 3 mile extension that goes into Blue Marsh, which we'll get to in a minute.
Back in the 80s, they had Reading had a Union Canal 10-mile run. I ran that 5 times.
The police still do races.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there are a few walks for foundation.
Blue Marsh Recreation Area. True. I keep stepping on the toes.
It's okay. Again, it's kind of that's funny. Actually, this picture right here is about 30 seconds from the Union Canal Trail. It crosses Reavers Bridge, I believe. And Blue Marsh, it's, again, people used to live there. You can actually see house foundations all over the place, and tree stumps in the water. The level is low enough. I think back in the 70s, they evicted everyone that lived there and built basically a huge retention lake, massive water buffer or a flood buffer for Philadelphia, and they turned it into a very large park. And there's the main trail system just goes around the lake, and that's about like 37 miles in itself. And there's some other ones spotted. Actually, in my Eagle Scout project there, but it's just a bunch of trails that in the woods. I mean, it's hard to.
It's
no big circle.
This, and a couple other places. This is owned by the Army Corps of Engineers. It's flight control, like Bruce said. They provide recreational opportunities there, which is better than putting a fence around it. It's a really nice place.
Yeah. And French Creek, I believe, is on the other side of Reading from here. What was that? Side of Berks County.
Birdsboro.
Yeah. And it's is it Hopewell Furnace? Hopewell National Historic. So that there's a furnace, if not in the park or right next to it, that people who go camping there, because they have like a formal family campground. And I'm pretty sure you might be able to walk from the campground to the furnace. I know they have a trail system and a number of lakes, and bass fishing, I believe. It's one of them.
In the 1930s, the federal government either bought or they already had this property. It was the French Creek demonstration area. It was a Depression era project. The federal government kept sort of the core of it, which is Hopewell National Historic Site. It's a museum, Iron Village essentially. They gave the rest of the project, which is sort of the area around, to the state. The state turned it into French Creek State Park. The Toon Trail. They're trying to go to what's called Schuylkill River Trail, going along the Schuylkill River. This is not one of my favorites. And I say that because where I have gotten on it is at RAC, Reading Area Community College. You cross over a bridge, kind of loop your way through some pretty developed areas. This area right here is a perfect example. It's a nice trail, but you're between a landfill and a highway. It's nice, it's something different. You go over some really nice bridges that are pretty, but a lot of it is just kind of, I don't know. I want my trail to be in the woods and pretty, and like I said, highway, landfill, take your pick. There are some nicer areas that, as you move farther away from Reading, are nice. It's 7 miles, so I like this once. There are a couple of parking areas. You go pretty close to Alvernia College, but I started at RAC, and I couldn't even tell you where I was when I ended. I don't know. But it's 5, 6, 7 miles. Bartram Trail. This one's a lot nicer. This is another section of the Schuylkill River Trail that they're trying to piece together. This is up in Hamburg. It goes from, I don't really know the name of it, but you can start at a park in Hamburg, cross over the Schuylkill River, take a trail. We'll eventually link to what's called the Kernsville Distilling Recreation Area, which is what this sort of marsh is. But it's about a 7 mile trail. It goes kind of around Fort Clinton.
Appalachian Trail across.
Appalachian Trail goes right across it. Again, it's a nice trail surface, and the thing that I really like about this is they have most rail trails have mile markers, but this one it's sort of a carved. I think it looks like they have a bird with a number on it. I mean, it's not just a stick in the ground with a 1 or a 2. It's a little bit more decorative, and it's just something different. But like 6, 7 miles. I'm a railroad fan, and it goes right next to I think it's the Reading Northern and Blue Marsh, Reading Northern and Blue Mountain Railroad Company main terminal in Fort Clinton.
The Pinnacle, the world's largest cabela's right in Hamburg, and Pinnacle is basically, I guess, a 5-minute drive from that cabela's. And Pulpit Rock is a little bit below the Pinnacle, but they're right along the same system. And it is part of the Appalachian Trail, and you get a great, an awesome view of Berks County up the top of the Pinnacle. And it is a steep climb, but there is a watershed parking lot.
Hamburg Reservoir.
Yeah, there was water. And that's actually, I think it's a 2-mile hike up to the Appalachian Trail, and then that kind of hooks you up the mountain to Pinnacle and Pulpit Rock. And both of them are outlets, and I know there's a parking lot in Pulpit Rock, but I have no idea how to get there.
Does anybody know where Hamburg is as a general ballpark? It's probably 45 minutes from here, kind of straight north of Reading.
And actually right on the end, Pulpit Rock is on at the peak of the mountain, and right between the valley where it's the mountain meets, that's where the road is, and Hamburg is there. And actually right on the other side of the road is where the Bartram Trail is in Portland.
York Heritage Rail Trail. I've run 2 marathons. One of them was on this trail. They do a marathon every June, I believe it is, late May, early June, called the Bob Potts Heritage Rail Trail Marathon. Starts at York College. They run you around York for a mile just to sort of spread the herd out, and then you go 12.5 miles down, 12.5 miles back. This grand total is about 40 miles. In York County, it's a county park, about 21 miles. Once you cross the state line into Maryland, it's a state park. It's part of Gunpowder Falls State Park, I believe. It's named for somebody. It used to be the North Central Rail Trail. Starts Center City, York, really close to the Colonial Courthouse complex. I don't tend to go too close to York. I like to go closer to what's called Hanover Junction, which is about halfway. That's what this building is here. Again, I'm a museum geek. There's a museum there. There's a museum in the town of New Freedom at the rail station there, restored rail station. This is well known. Lincoln, when he went from Washington, D.C. to Gettysburg for the Gettysburg Address, he took this rail line, he got off the train at the Hanover Junction train station, which is what this is, and then got on another train and went to Gettysburg.
Goes to Huntsville.
Goes to Huntsville. And I think they do another marathon in the Maryland part of the trail. But this is one of the oldest transportation tunnels still in use in the world. It's called the Howard Tunnel. There's a rail line that goes beside it. Has anybody ever heard of something called Steam into History? It's a tourist railroad that just started running this year. It runs along the rail trail. They had done that when they first opened this trail back in like the late 90s, early 2000s, out of New Freedom. And then that business died out, and it was just a rail line next to the trail. But they fixed it up and brought that back as a tourist railroad. I have yet to go on it. I don't think it's quite like Strasburg, but it's on my to-do list for this summer to go see that.
Ghost stories.
Shameless plug for them, but
Ghost stories in Howard Tunnel.
huh,
Ghost stories about that Howard Tunnel.
not that I know of.
Oh,
Rocky, I lived in Hanover for like a year and a half. I worked in Gettysburg and Littlestown. I commuted between here and there for a while. I was still training to run, so periodically I would just stop at one of the parks over there, go for a run. Rocky Ridge County Park is, if you know where the Galleria is, York Galleria, you go past that on Mount Zion Road, kind of go up to the top of the hill, turn right, back about 2 miles. So basically, as you're driving on Route 30 into York, about 2 or 3 miles before you get to the Galleria, there's kind of a wooded hill up on the right-hand side. It's a couple of 100 acres of trails. It's one of those. They have ball fields, they have playgrounds, they have woods. The back part of it has a lot of really nice trails. Some pretty good overlooks too. You are at the top of a ridge. This is the only picture I have. Every year they do a Christmas light display that you can walk through. I forget, the Christmas Magic or something there. It's a fundraiser for York County Parks. I went, and that's the only picture I had. Sorry. Codorus State Park. This is a man-made lake. It's like 3,000 acres, something like that. About 1,500 acres of land. The rest is water. But this is in the Hanover area. Like I said, I used to live in Hanover. There's 12 miles of trails that go through it. Unfortunately, they're all sort of in separate pockets. There's 5 miles on one end of the lake that they call the bike trails. There's 5 miles on the other side of the lake they call the horse trail. There's a 1 mile trail here. There's a 3 mile trail, 3 mile grouping of trails they call Marion Furnace. You can kind of go between them, but I really do love this park. The one thing I really loved about living in Hanover was Codorus was next door. But it's a man-made lake. PH Gladstone paper needed a water supply. Hanover needed a recreation opportunity, so we have Codorus. There's an old church called the Wildison Meeting House, just kind of randomly in the woods next to a trail. That's what that building is. Gettysburg. I don't go anywhere near Gettysburg right now, but they have trails there. But if you go in the off season, if you have a good day in February, a good day in March, it's a good time to go over and take your bike, because a lot of particularly like during a weekday. Again, I used to work in Gettysburg, so there were a couple of times over my lunch hour, I just go over to the battlefield. Again, once you get into tourist season, I wouldn't go anywhere near it. I would not take my bike over there, but they do have a lot of trails around. Like I said, the park roads just kind of go every which direction, so take it east today in October and go over and walk around. Pinchot. This is in Lewisberry. This is northeastern York County. Again, it's a man-made lake. I love state parks. I call myself a state park outdoorsman. I like to be outside, but don't ask me to pitch a tent or build a fire. There's an 8-mile loop around it. It's pretty rugged. Running, it took me like an hour and a half. It should not take me an hour and a half to run 8 miles. Again, as with most state parks, there's a lot of little interconnected trails, but they use it for boating, they use it for rowing. It's really intended to be Harrisburg's recreation opportunity. Wow, this almost gets lost in Harrisburg. It touches Route 81. Part of it touches Route 322. If you know where Hack's campus is, Hack's main campus is called Wildwood because it's close to this. There's a 3-mile trail that goes around it. It's a lake in Harrisburg. It's a Dauphin County park. Gets a lot of use by people in Harrisburg. I believe it's part of the Capitol Greenway, which I don't know too much about, but it's like a 20-mile trail path system that goes around Harrisburg. Part of the Harrisburg Marathon goes around here. If you know where Hack is, Hack's main campus in New York, it's not far from there. It's the other side of 81 from that, but it's really pretty. We have some boardwalks that go through some wetlands that are closer to the 81 side of it. But part of it's paved, part of it's like a tan bark dirt trail. I think the tan bark dirt trail is an old canal bed. But
They also have little sheds where you can watch the wildlife.
Yeah.
oh yeah, on the boardwalk part.
They're doing a lot of cleanup there, hazmat, because of the oil tanker, all the runoff went into that.
Okay.
So last time I was there, it was closed and hazmat had their teams there, just so you know.
It has a couple of really odd drain things in it. There's one at one end, and there's one, I think they call it the daisy cutter or something like that. It's a big circle thing that water drains into, and I guess out in the Susquehanna River. But there's also a really nice nature center there. It's the Benjamin Old Line Nature Center that's 7-8 years old. State Game Land 211 in the Stony Creek Valley. One of the largest roadless tracks in the state of Pennsylvania is not far from Harrisburg. There is an 18-mile trail, 16-mile trail, that goes from Dauphin along the river, a little bit east of that, straight across to almost Indiantown Gap. Above Indiantown Gap, there's not a single road that goes through it. It's also called St. Anthony's Wilderness. It's a valley. There's a rail line that goes through it. I ran it once in high school or in college, and back in October, the State Game Commission opened it up, and you can drive through it. There's 2 or 3 ghost towns that are along this trail. One is called Cold Spring Resort. It was a turn of the century-ish, 1910s, 1920s. It was a resort. It was a hotel. Then it became Camp Shannon. The Langston County YMCA, I believe, had their property there. They gave it up during World War II because artillery shells from Fort Indiantown Gap started getting a little too close. So it's really a huge, expansive wilderness. It's absolutely huge. I mean, when you think about how large it is and how close you are to a city like Harrisburg, this sort of metropolis that is South Central PA. This is an old cemetery. This is called Rausch Gap. It's an old ghost town with a little cemetery. There's 3 or 4 graves still there. Like I said, how do you get there? Dauphin. You go 322 north of Harrisburg to the borough of Dauphin, and off the top of my head, I can't tell you roads, but you kind of sneak through some roads, and then you get to the trailhead. It's State Game Land 211. I have a write-up on it that they handed out to everybody as you go through. But really pretty much in the middle of nowhere. But just absolutely gorgeous because you're very much in a valley.
That's north of Fishing Creek Valley, right? Fishing Creek is right up 322 when you start going north? North of that then?
I know it is, you get to the borough of Dolphin,
Okay.
and you go east. You go through the borough and take some, that's probably, yeah. Pine Grove Furnace State Park, the Appalachian Trail's halfway point is in Pennsylvania. Pine Grove Furnace State Park, this is Cumberland County, kind of south, it's between Carlisle and Shippensburg roughly, on the Adams, Cumberland County line. Michaux State Forest surrounds that area. There's a lot of trails that go through there. Michaux State Forest is very large. A lot of trails go through that way. I've hiked on two different overlooks there. One's called Pole Steeple that overlooks, there's a couple of small lakes there, and one's called Sunset Rocks. I'm a history geek. There's an area there that started life in the 1930s as a civilian conservation corps camp. During World War II, it was a top secret German POW camp. They took German prisoners there to interrogate them. They didn't want the Germans to know that we had them. So it was a prison camp for a while. And then at the end of World War II, it became a church camp. And was a church camp through the 1970s. There's a really good book that the Cumberland County Historical Society published called Secret War at Home. So this is part of that camp. That's a fountain built by the Civilian Conservation Corps. But the history of that property is absolutely fascinating when you think about what it is. And you can go around and look at some different things. And there's a bridge that has some writing on the side. It has a prisoner, it's like PW and then a number. But it's a really great place. I'm a museum geek. The only museum in the world devoted to a foot trail is in Pine Grove Furnace State Park. The Appalachian Trail Museum opened in 2010, I believe. But it's in a restored building, actually at the core of Pine Grove.
And actually, I can say three things because I'm at AT fanatic. And there at that AT museum, it used to be part of the furnace that was Pine Grove Furnace. But I guess the attendance just wasn't too high, so we converted it to the AT museum. And they have like a sample shelter in there at the AT. One of the signs does have Katahdin, which is the end point of the AT at the main. And
Typically that's for them,
yeah,
which is the other.
yeah, Jordan. And basic science brochures. But I've met AT through hikers on that stretch before, and it's kind of like a hotbed since it is the midway point. Like it's not the true midway point, but it's so close.
Well, the trail constantly changes as they have to reroute, so the midway point is not a fixed position. But they used to have this little marker here. Like this was sort of the symbolic midway point of the trail. I think that has since disappeared.
And the second plug would be between the actual furnace. Well, it used to be the Iron Master's mansion, but now it's a hostel. I stayed a couple times. It's a very neat hostel. But between the hostel and the AT Museum, they have a little, I think it's just like the State Park convenience store, but they have something called the Half Gallon Challenge, which is the AT through hikers challenge of eating a half gallon of ice cream. So that's another highlight of the trail for that. Yeah, it's this thing.
The AT in Pennsylvania is known as the place that boots go to die. And Pennsylvania is really rocky, and you're going to go through several pairs of. I typically don't run on the Appalachian Trail. The first time I ran, I think I went about a mile before I twisted my ankle. I mean, it's not a running trail; it's a hike. Let's see this one. We're kind of running a little long. Let's see about.
I actually just recently discovered this one, and even though mine seems like a suburb of Reading, I was surprised at how big this was and how hidden it's been this week for so long. And it's mainly a dog walking park, but it's huge. And there was a very wide and still shallow creek that runs along it, and there's no main road to run by it. There's one that is shut down, so it's very nice asphalt pathway basically to walk. And and all sorts of trails kind of seem to break off, but everything loops around and brings you back to the same point. And I think it somehow is hooked up to the Reading Museum. So